Warning, this video is gonna have a lot of numbers. By the late 1950s, people had a general idea on what made a good basketball player and who the best in the game were. Then Wilt Chamberlain came along and pretty much took a sledgehammer to all that. Wilt became the best basketball player the world had ever seen in record time. It was basically as if his very presence in the NBA completely destroyed the status quo from day one. He was just so much better than the typical player, it was insane. Which begs the question, how could one guy be so much better than everyone else? Let's start at the very beginning. Born in Philadelphia, Wilt was ridiculously good at basketball from an early age. Retroactively deemed the best high school player in his national graduating class, he went on to play college basketball at Kansas. Then for 3 years, he was just casually one of, if not the best college basketball players. After his junior year, he was like, you know what? This is too easy and I don't want to be here anymore. But at that time, the NBA wouldn't accept college players basically until they were 4 years removed from high school. Imagine if they still did that today. Because he couldn't play in the NBA, he did the next best thing. Play for the Harlem Globetrotters. That's right. Possibly the best basketball player on the planet was playing for the Harlem Globetrotters. After 1 year with the Globetrotters, his hometown Philadelphia Warriors came calling. When they signed him in 1959, he immediately became the highest paid player in the game. This was before he ever stepped on an NBA court. Somehow, he actually took a pay cut when he entered the NBA.
But you're coming here actually and taking a cut in salary from what you made over this last year with the Harlem Globetrotters.
Never again will an NBA team sign a guy from the Globetrotters to the most expensive contract in the league. Wilt probably knew this kind of money wasn't typical for rookies. He also probably knew that at 7'1", he was 4 inches taller than the average NBA center. And he probably knew that a man who never played organized professional basketball wasn't supposed to be the best player in the world. But he was just like,
okay.
In his very first game, he scored 43 points and had 28 rebounds. 2 games later, he reached 41 points and 40 rebounds. He'd break the 50-point barrier multiple times that season as a rookie, easily coasting to a Rookie of the Year, scoring title, and MVP. About that scoring title, he just happened to win it his first 7 years in the league, like all rookies eventually do.
Basketball fans are waiting to see how you're going to do in the NBA, especially against players of great capability.
He did alright. That year, he averaged 37.6 points per game. Before then, the record for points per game in a season was 29.24, which was just set the previous year. Out of all completed seasons in the history of the NBA, Wilt's rookie year is 4th all-time in points per game. The men ahead of him are Wilt Chamberlain, and Wilt Chamberlain. Nobody else was even in his ballpark at his scoring peak. He is the only man to average 40 points in a season, and he did it twice, in only his 3rd and 4th seasons in the league. Wow. We'll get back to that 3rd season in a bit, but his rookie year gets even wilder. Wilt averaged just under 27 rebounds per game in his rookie year, number 2 all-time in that, only topped by Wilt Chamberlain the next year. Also, they didn't count blocks during Wilt's career, but a lot of people assume he would have shattered the records for that too. It's time to introduce you to a villain in this story, the arch nemesis of Wilt Chamberlain. Not really, because they were apparently pretty good friends, but you'll see why. Meet Bill Russell. If not for Bill Russell, Wilt would own all of the top 6 rebounding seasons ever. Bill Russell was the only other player even in his neighborhood in rebounding at this time. But Bill Russell did some other stuff. He won. A lot. And because his team was better, he would snatch up a bunch of MVPs. If it wasn't for Bill Russell and the absolute machine that was the late 50s and early 60s Celtics, Wilt would be leaps and bounds above everyone else from his era. If Wilt is Pat McAfee, Bill is Troy Polamalu standing right in his C gap. Some other numbers to show that his rookie year was unbelievable. Wilt took almost 250 more shots than anyone else in the league, and he still finished 6th in field goal percentage. Look, there's Bill Russell again. We took the average points per game of everyone in the 1959-60 NBA season's top 20 scorers, not counting Wilt Chamberlain. It's about 21.2. Wilt averaged 37.6. He was nearly twice as good as the average elite scorer. Let's do the same thing with rebounds. Bill Russell is going to inflate this average, but we'll be fair and count him. The average of the top 20 rebounds that year not named Wilt Chamberlain was 11.93 per game. Wilt averaged 27, making him more than twice as good at rebounding as the average elite rebounder. And yet, with all of this, there were still writers who didn't vote for him for MVP. The world was not ready for someone this absurdly good at basketball. Someone even voted for one of Wilt's teammates ahead of him. That teammate averaged 15 points and 10 rebounds per game. In his second season, he just casually stayed that good, continuing to annihilate everyone. But his third season, that's where things get nuts. If you know anything about Wilt Chamberlain, it's probably that he once scored 100 points in a game. Only one other person has even reached 80. Only 5 other people have even reached 70. Yet Wilt cleared 100, and those other numbers with ease too. That year he averaged 50.4 points per game. Let's make that number even crazier than it already is. The Chicago Packers, a team name that sounds really out of place to NFL fans, were an expansion team that year. You can find them today as the Washington Wizards. They averaged 110.9 points per game as a team. Wilt averaged 45% of what an entire team did. We decided to run a test on 2K where on blacktop mode, we put Wilt against a bunch of other players in 2K from his time period to see if he'd dominate them. He did. But we know what you really want to see. You want to see us make a bunch of cloned created players almost 2 feet shorter than Wilt and put Wilt in a game with them. And you know what? That's exactly what we're gonna do, and make the rest of the footage in this video exactly that. In the years after his unmatched start, he still obliterated everyone. But it took until 1967 for him to earn his first ring as a member of the 76ers. He'd win one more in 1972 as a member of the Lakers before retiring the next year. He was a basketball and American icon. He won scoring titles, rebound titles, and even an assist title one year. The Nets offered him a contract in 1986, when he was 50. His number has been retired by 3 NBA teams and his alma mater, Kansas, and he left a legacy as one of the most dominant forces and superhuman athletes in history. He was basically a real-life Monstar from Space Jam, who somehow became by far the best player the NBA had ever seen from his first day in the league. Unreal. He was the NBA version of this guy with the long pants from this video.